In questions of power, then, let us hear no more of confidence in man, but bind him down from mischief with the chains of the Constitution. Thomas Jefferson.
Good morning. Welcome back to Talking Racine. Thank you for that opening comment, Mr. George Myers, constitutional scholar here. Yeah. Mr. Jim Spodek, our producer, and I'm Dr. Ken Jorgen, your host. This is episode number 95 of Talking Racine, and we're going to talk this morning about the court action that was taken recently in the case of Sandy Weidner, the contempt hearing that was being held against her, and some of the things that have taken place there, specifically a motion to intervene that was filed by Mr. Harry Waite, a private citizen here in the city. And a motion to intervene basically means that the petitioner says, I have a right to speak to the court and address this situation. I think it involves me personally, it involves my constitutional rights, and those are my fellow citizens, and I want to talk. I want to have the opportunity to be a presence in this action. So he filed that motion to intervene, and this discussion is going to be about what happened in response to that.
Yeah, and I'd like to, you say he has the right to say. It's more than that even. He has something to say, right. And he has something pertinent to say, and he has a right to say it. And that is the question before the court here right now. Should that have been just thrown out?
Harry Waite was the first. Now, I really didn't know Harry too well, but Harry came to the last hearing with Sandy Weidner, and it was the contempt hearing. He filed a motion to have the hearing opened prior to. Now we think about
because it had been sealed.
It had been sealed at that point.
Eugene Gashikevich.
Right, and he filed a motion to open that up to the public because he said, I have a right to understand it, because there was no court docketed. There was nothing. You knew nothing about this. It was a secret court dealing.
On an open records request. An open records.
I mean, that's how bizarre.
Are specifically for the public to know that's correct. What it's all about.
So he filed a motion to open the court, which they honored. They had to, actually, because it was what he had said was right. So they opened that up. So we were able to go and sit in the pews for the contempt hearing. Obviously, they found Sandy Weidner in contempt, and we can go into that later. But at that point, then, after that, he filed a motion to intervene in the appeals court, because Sandy Weidner and her attorneys have filed an appeal with the state of Wisconsin I want to have another judge look at this, or a panel of judges to look at this, to say, I think the Judge Gashikevich erred in this decision, and I want to look at it. He then said, I also, as a citizen, have my rights, my constitutional rights, and my fellow Racine County residents have a right to intervene and speak to the appeals court on their behalf.
So basically, he's acting as our de facto representative.
Yes, yeah. I mean, Harry took it upon himself, his own, and he did it. He's doing it pro se.
Well, in response to that,
they denied him.
Well, no. Before that, an Attorney Cohn, from Milwaukee, files a motion to dismiss with the appeals court.
Right. Now this is
he was hired by City Attorney Scott Letney. Now why is the city attorney having to hire an outside attorney, and who authorized that hiring and that expenditure of funds?
That is a very good question.
It's all about a slideshow.
Yeah, right.
A big important thing. But we got to get an outside attorney.
Right.
Let's roll.
So anyway, Attorney Cohn files a motion to dismiss with the court.
That it dismiss Harry's
motion.
Motion
to intervene. And Harry Waite gets a communication from the court, one sentence on one page, saying that your motion has been denied.
Your intervention has been,
Your motion to intervene has been denied.
Right.
Now, typically when something like this happens, when somebody argues against a motion that you've made in court, you have an opportunity to respond to their motion to dismiss, to respond to their argument. He was given no such opportunity. He just got a one sentence, one page dismissal of his motion. Now, he is not the only person to file a motion to intervene, is he?
Correct.
Who else filed a motion to intervene?
Well,
and how does that lend weight to his motion to intervene?
I'm going to read them.
Please do.
Now, the petitioner obviously is Alderman Sandy Weidner. The respondents now have filed another motion to intervene. Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, USA Today Network, Wisconsin, the Wisconsin Freedom of Information Council, the Wisconsin Newspaper Association, and the Wisconsin Broadcasters Association. These are the heavy hitters in communication.
It's an impressive list of people.
It is very impressive.
Now, where's the Journal Times? I don't see them on here anywhere.
Well, they wrote to give them credit, they did actually come in, late to the game, but they did. They
wrote an editorial.
They wrote an editorial
or published one anyway,
in support of the intervention by the newspapers associations. But truthfully, they should have been in the lead on this. They knew what was happening. They knew the ethics committee was handled. They knew that there was I want to call it a secret court prior to all this, until Sandy actually went to the Milwaukee Journal. They were well aware of all of this, and didn't do anything.
And they should also know how important it is that they get in there and get this stuff exposed. The First Amendment is the first of 10 amendments, and it's right there at the top because it is very important, and that's that freedom of press. And that is really important that they get in there and they exercise that, particularly at something like this, because it affects all of us. This is the government trying to do things behind closed doors.
Well, they say sunshine is a great disinfectant.
Yeah.
And what could be more transparent to sunshine than an open system, and
exposure. That's the essence of freedom with respect to government. In other words, it has to. If the public's going to live with government and have government around, they've got to be open and obvious. Otherwise, they're not responsive to the people. They become oppressive to the people, and you start to lose that society.
Right. And you will, and we've seen that throughout history in different,
That's right.
countries and different.
So it's interesting that there are news agencies and interested parties across the country who are interested in this particular case. Not because the case itself is so dramatic, but the principles involved are.
Yeah, or that effect what's going on in Racine is going to affect somebody maybe in Topeka, Kansas.
This is a huge.
But the thing is that this concept certainly would affect them. If this starts to grow, or governments and judges are willing to close the government's doors and pull down the shades over its windows so that nobody can see what's going on, that can be a real problem.
This is how case law is established. This is how references are established.
Right.
Because people will refer to Weidner versus the city of Racine, and this is what happened, so therefore...
This is what Racine did. How often do you hear that?
Right. Exactly.
Racine.
Well, and I've heard this. I've heard this from the community, and I've heard this from public officials that, Sandy should have just done what they told her to do. Well,
right. Well, there's a little thing that, and we were talking about it earlier. I wish you guys could be here for the conversations we have sometimes before we get on a camera. We're going through the Alderman's Handbook for the city of Racine. And this is a page, in making decisions, this is right at the top of the page, which involve ethical principles in conflicting interests of various stakeholders, it may be useful to take into account the most common rationalizations which lead to justify unethical conduct. A rationalization is a way by which you justify something that you're doing which is not really justifiable. Now, there's 7 of them listed here. And one of them is, it doesn't hurt anyone.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Doesn't hurt anyone. So it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. But that doesn't mean that it's ethical. There's if it's necessary, it's ethical. If it's legal and permissible, it's proper. Not necessarily true. Here's one that applies directly to Sandy Weidner's case. I was just doing it for you. Judge Gashikevitz referred to his sealing of the court records as being beneficial to Sandy Weidner. I was just doing it for you. It fits right into this rationalization that the Alderman's Handbook specifically outlines as things you should be aware of as an alderman, things that you might argue in your mind to do something that's unethical.
Now,
okay.
So we have the newspaper associations and broadcasters intervening in the Weidner versus City of Racine open records case. Now it goes to the appeals court. Mm-hmm. Who is on that appeals court?
Well, there are, what are there, four
judges we show here.
Yeah, four
There's
judges.
a chief judge, a presiding judge, and Judge 3 and Judge 4.
And who are they? Who are they, George?
Well,
who's the chief judge?
The chief judge is Lisa S. Neubauer.
And what is Lisa's position in Racine? I mean, what is her? Let's go over her social position a little bit.
Her connections to Racine.
Right. Yeah.
Got some connections to Racine. We've all heard of Jeff Neubauer, certainly.
Yeah. Right.
He's been
Jeff's been active in politics. He was a state assemblyman, I believe, at one time.
Yep.
Yeah. Good guy. I know Jeff.
Right.
Their daughter, Jeff and Lisa's daughter, is Greta Neubauer, who is a former assistant to Assemblyman Corey Mason, who in fact is herself now state assembly person.
Mm-hmm. But there's a connection there.
Yes, absolutely. There's a connection
to Corey Mason, who happens to be our mayor.
Right.
Who also happens to be the husband of the municipal judge.
Who was former assemblyman, which Greta Neubauer was the aide to Corey Mason.
And that was her link to getting that
Right.
office. She had been associated with him in that office, been an aide, and so
now let's look at this.
Sandy Weidner ran against Corey Mason, didn't she, in the mayoral race?
Absolutely, she did.
Yeah.
So if we start to put you start to connect it's not even a dots. It's
the
more
connections,
It's more like a spider web. But you start to put this together. This case now, who has a sealed case, let's call it a secret case, because that's really a secret court case, because that's really what it is. It now goes in front of the appeals court, who is well connected to the connections of these emails within Racine. How does she give an honest evaluation of Judge Gasker-Gevich's decision?
Well, she could.
In this
she
position.
could, but the very fact that you're raising that question because of the links,
Right.
is grounds. That is a justification for her to recuse herself and say, "I'm too close to this personally." Even the appearance of impropriety is beyond what it should be, so I'm going to recuse myself. A recusal is, I withdraw from judgment in this case. And
now, we know as a fact that there is definite connections between the Masons and Sandy Weidner and these emails.
Judge Neubauer.
Yeah, and Judge Neubauer. I mean, this is a very tight-knit. Now, is there... And I really think at some point there could be collusion among the courts, and I say that because I do believe there could be. Now, is that going to happen? It really, and I don't know enough about it. But when a appeal goes to the appeals court, how is it actually handled? Does one say, I don't want anything? I mean, somebody makes a decision on it, but how is that handled? Can one say, I'm no longer, or is this, well, we make a discussion, and then you write the decision because we discussed this?
Well, Jim, to back up your concern, I mean, it's not that uncommon for a case to be taken totally out of a jurisdiction and moved to another one because there's just too many people connected with the case and the public and the community to give a fair trial, give a fair hearing to someone in that jurisdiction. So you take it from like Racine and you move it up to Milwaukee or out to Janesville or someplace like that, where you haven't got all this intertwined.
Or this is district court 2. Maybe move it to another district court. I don't know if you can do that.
Well, no, I'm not talking about that at all. What I'm talking about is your concern about is there collusion, is there connectivity, and there obviously it's more than just your concern. It's often the concern of anybody associated with trying to defend something within a particular jurisdiction. There's just too many judges and people and officials connected to the case to actually expect to get a fair trial in this particular area.
And
so let's move it out of it. Now, in this, it's not exactly like that, but there's connections here.
Yeah.
You have the chief judge. Her daughter was the former. She was the heir apparent to Corey Mason's position as the assemblyman.
Correct.
All right, because she was the assistant. So she was the heir apparent. Now he happens to now be the mayor. In fact, that's how she got the position. He became the mayor,
Right.
had to vacate it,
Right.
so he nominated her, Lisa, his daughter, to take over from his former assistant. Well, it just happens that the chief judge is the mother of the new assemblyman, so has a very close connection to Corey Mason, and Corey Mason shares an office with the city attorney. All right, and so there's too much closeness there, and the city attorney is the one bringing the action against Sandy Weidner.
And here's the other thing, George. Take it one step further. Why is Corey Mason allowing this to continue to fester within the Common Council and the rest? Because it's only growing. When you have the intervention of major news sources in the state of Wisconsin.
Well, he doesn't control the council, but he certainly can lend an opinion.
Right. But, I mean, don't you think at this point you should say, listen, maybe this has gone too far, or am I involved?
For Corey Mason to say that?
Yeah, well, we know for a fact.
Yeah.
We know for a fact that his wife, Rebecca, the municipal judge, has been directly involved in this case, and we know that from information that we have from prior to the court records being sealed. So there's too many questions. Somebody needs to back away, recuse themselves, and assure the public that a impartial, unbiased action is going to be taking place here.
Yeah, so you have not only have the mayor with the direct association through family and former position, but you have the wife of the mayor connected through political things going on.
Let's take it one step further. Machinery Row. You know, how many millions of dollars has left the coffers of the city of Racine over Machinery Row? We know it was a straw man. We know that this money was kicked back. We know that there's information. Let's take it back to, when did all this start? When Sandy Weidner started to talk about
when she first mentioned the fact that there had been a slush fund established.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I remember her saying that the city, she didn't use these words, but was basically getting ripped off by at Machinery Row.
Well, at that time, she thought that Blackwell was doing the ripping off.
But Rodney Blackwell said we were not going to get our money out of Rodney Blackwell. He was not going to come through us. We were being suckered into it. And she was saying we, meaning the council.
Well, it turns out he was just a component of what was a conspiratorial.
No, now we find out he's just a straw man.
Yeah.
Right. The point is, at that point, Sandy became a problem for the government. Right up to that point, things were running along smoothly. Everybody's behaving. Things are going on behind the scenes. Nobody's raising a big fuss about it. People are shoveling money into their pockets, and
she began acting as a representative of the people instead of a member of the club.
All of a sudden, she asked questions.
Yeah,
that's right. And at that point, she had a tiger by the tail, and wasn't fully aware of what was at the other end of that.
I mean, I don't believe she even knew. But she started.
I got a handful of fur here. What's on the other end? Oh my God!
But no, she started asking questions.
And she pursued it. She didn't back down at any point, and she hasn't pursued it yet. And all this gets connected back to that, which heavily draws in, once again, Corey Mason, because he was a big promoter of the project. Yep. He was a friend of Rodney Blackwell. I guess he was a friend of it. It was certainly
I saw the project. Yeah, there was definitely connection.
Right.
Now you bring in $9 million in tax credits. I mean, if you really wanted to take this a little step further,
the tax credit.
Why were the tax credits then? When those tax credits, those tax credits were all BS from the beginning. Because we have to hurry up and get this done because of the tax credit. Mm-hmm. We have to do this because of the tax credits. The kickback was because of the tax credits. We have to hurry up and close this. So anytime you do stuff fast, we got to close quick, and we need that money, George. We need it right away because the tax credits, we're going to lose them.
Yeah. Here we go. If it's necessary, it's ethical. Boy, it's necessary.
Exactly.
We got to get this done. We got to do this.
So all of this was as it unfolded. I mean, once it went into play, and again, the Journal-Times just went along with the ride, never really looked at anything. But when Sandy started to bring up some questions, like, why are we not, who's making the interest payments? Why is Rodney Blackwell never on this project? Started to ask those questions, started to send emails, started to, question the whole operation of it. It started to get tighter and tighter. We got to rein her in, bring her in, because the rest of the council either knew or decided to stick their head in the sand. And I think that's exactly what happened. And then now Sandy had been, continually pushing. These emails may not have much into it, but the fact is there may be a heck of a lot more emails that are going to come out because of this. And we're going to show that later in the show here, where Kenosha, one email turned into a big problem for Kenosha. And I think that's going to happen here.
Yeah, it could. It certainly could.
It looks like, there's a lot behind. You see the demolition of millions of dollars in buildings, and the spending of what were $10-12 million plus more debt. Now, it's gotten to be a huge amount of money.
Well, let's get back to the questions here. How much is this costing the taxpayers? And by this, I mean this case against Sandy Weidner. How much is this costing? How much is Attorney Cohen charging for his services to represent Attorney Letney, the city attorney, in this action? How was that authorized? Was that authorized through the city council?
Yeah. We haven't seen anything in council minutes.
No.
This is a personal attack against a sitting alderman.
Sort of looks like.
Why is that being handled by an outside attorney, and why are we as taxpayers paying for this? That's what I want to know. Where's the rest of the city council? They're watching the bus run over Alderman Weidner.
Well, they put the bus on Alderman Weidner. They backed it up over Alderman Weidner because they went to that executive committee. And I'm going to tell you, when they went to that executive committee, you cannot tell me that there were not aldermen in that room that understood that this was a gut-level wrong thing to do, and they let it happen, or they actually voted for it. Yeah. And there's some senior aldermen there that should be ashamed of themselves for what they did. And they know they did it, because if they look down in their guts, they know damn well they pushed
They know
in.
enough about
Absolutely.
how government operates to know that this was a counterattack. This was an attack on Sandy. This big slideshow presentation, this PowerPoint presentation, attacking one alderman for doing what would be a relatively normal thing to do. You get information and you pass it on.
Perfectly normal, not relatively normal.
And then when you talk about
normal.
the court system that comes in and secretly hides it because the attorney goes to the courts and says, I'm the attorney of the city. This woman is letting, this information out that should be kept quiet. So the courts work within this secret court to actually collude together.
The judge says, okay.
They were complicit. They were complicit with the city attorney that told the judge on sealing it.
No, this is way deep.
Yeah.
And that's why you have, when you really look at it, the Open Records Council and stuff, they look at this and they immediately see the problem here.
I'm glad the press sees that, because this is important. This is an important concept of the Constitution, as well as our freedom when it comes to this type of activity by government to close things down. So it's good to see the press coming in there. Sometimes they're accused of fake news and all that stuff. I don't give a damn about that stuff. Get in there and at least bring out the truth. And if you or try and bring out the truth,
muck around, you might find something.
Yeah, well, and
they call them muckrakers for a reason.
Yeah, once in a while you say something wrong. Fine, you said something wrong. You can correct it. But at least get in there and dig and find out what's going on. And something like this, which is so darn obvious.
Well, we really don't know what Judge Neusbauer's role has been thus far. Whether she has been close to this action where Harry Waite, whether she was involved with the dismissal, or was if it just. A lot of times these things are handled by lower level people in a court situation. It's like the clerk is kind of like given the responsibility.
I've seen that. Yeah,
it's unfortunate, but it does happen. So we really don't know what her involvement has been, but I think. She knows that we are uncomfortable with the situation. I hope that she's giving it some consideration, and that she will come to the conclusion.
And I got to believe
that she probably doesn't want to be involved.
The broadcasters and the newspaper also have to kind of start connecting the dots here, because they're not dumb. They'll figure it out.
They're not.
We have accused a lot of people dumb. I think they did. But you know, one of the things that when they talk about, and I don't want to get off on this too deep, because we did put this online, the Court of Appeals intervention by the newspaper folks. It is on Talking Racine, and you can read it. But you know, they talk about with Harry Waits, you know, it was denied probably because they don't like Harry Waite, maybe, I don't know. But the fact is that when they did put this newspaper, they're going to have a hard time denying this, because they talk about, you know, you have to do it in a timely fashion. There's 3 or 4 different things you have to do. Yeah. And one of them is, you know, it's their lifeblood to the news. It's the Constitution. You know, I mean, this is really very, very, I mean, this goes to the basic of the Constitution. And it's going to be interesting to see the appeals court and what they do with the newspaper motion to intervene. You know, I'm really kind of curious to see what are they going to do with this. I mean, I find it very hard for them to dismiss this.
Oh, you mean all those newspaper things? No,
well, it better be damned hard for him.
I think Harry suffered from the thing that he was what's called a pro se. In other words, he did it without an attorney. He was just doing it himself.
Right.
He's just a private individual. Now, unfortunately, we've gotten to that point in this country.
Yep.
I mean, when this country was founded, when the Declaration of Independence was being written and the Constitution was being considered, the individual was still important. And the individual people were considered. And when you read the Federalist Papers, the importance that James Madison had put on their activities and how they would deal with the possible upsets within the new Constitution being considered. But we've gotten to the point now where government has kind of reestablished the old aristocracies. Mm-hmm. You know, they're normally associated with kings. So we don't use aristocracy, we use bureaucracy, but they were basically the same thing. And they are running things, and we are demeaning the role of the individual. And that's what concerns me with Harry Waite. I think it could be something very, very fundamentally wrong with dismissing his motion like that.
Yeah.
Now, if I find out there's some rules been made and there's some standards set or something like that, fine, I'll change my mind. But right now, it looks like his was just no judge said anything, no rule was cited, just we're dismissing your things, one line, no explanation. That sounds to me like, Harry, you don't count. You're nothing. You're just a person.
Mm-hmm. Right.
You know, and that was what was different about the United States of America, the new country, America, is that the individual, the common man, was important. He had rights. He meant something. And if we lose that, we've lost our base.
We've lost the whole point of being a country.
Of this country, yeah. We've lost the base, and now we're back to the superficial thing about the king, you know, a top-down type of government, and what this country was all about. So I really hope we find out more about it. I'm really hoping that Lisa Neubauer will bow out and maybe give an explanation of why Harry Waite's motion. It seems like it'd be a good thing for a chief judge to do. Let's get an explanation from the chief judge of why Harry Waite's motion was just dismissed without any consideration.
No explanation, just one line.
No explanation.
All right, I want to go into Kenosha. I want to just kind of hit this before the show ends.
Okay.
I want to kind of just a little bit of similarities between Sandy Weidner and the city of Kenosha. So I'm going to just go on this and we can kind of comment on it.
I need a motion to approve the minutes of the meeting held September 7, 2018. Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion is approved. At this time, open to citizens' comments.
Michael Bell.
Good evening, Michael Bell, 3317 13th Place, Wisconsin, Kenosha, Wisconsin.
Well, that's Michael Bell, who's a citizen of the city of Kenosha, and you have to understand what Michael Bell has gone through. His son was killed in an intervention by the police in his driveway, and the circumstances were very questionable, and he's been wanting to have this thing cleared up ever since. The man lost his son to gun violence. His son was literally shot in the head by a police officer. And the police officer himself, later on, committed suicide.
Right.
Now, whether or not anything that happened on that night when his son was killed by that police officer had anything to do with the policeman taking his own life, we don't know. It would be speculation, but it would not be surprising to learn that was a motivating factor.
Even if it just re-stimulated something in him.
It
got him so upset. And
So anyway, he.
But this was done. Now his son was shot. In his view, was he on the porch at the time?
Well, it was. And I don't have all the details, but I think his wife
but
and
it was in
sister
his driveway.
there was definitely there. The car sat there for a long time. Michael took on a major investigation into his son's death. The city of Kenosha did a forensic testing and did some reenactments.
Spent 56 hours working on it.
And called it justifiable, which obviously the father's found out it was different. I believe he won $2+ million in a settlement. The city of Kenosha basically said, here's your money, Michael. I mean, we're sorry it happened. Situations happen. We don't find any wrongdoing, and go about your way. Well, he didn't. And he's been investigating this ever since. They did a major investigation. He hired private investigators. And there's a lot on the internet. If you go to Michael Bell, just pull him up in Kenosha, and there's all kinds of different things that you can study the case. But he's was a former, I believe, a pilot in the military. I think he's I don't know his rank, but he understands the I guess the logistics of an investigation, and he did his own. And what he's still continuing on is the fact that.
He's convinced that there was a cover-up on the part of the city of Kenosha.
There was a cover-up. There was a cover-up. It expanded into, and he'll go into it a little bit, into the IT department in the city of Kenosha, which is the emails informational technology department. What happened was they deleted emails on his case, 9 particular emails, and possibly other things that went on. He's asked for an investigation. They did an investigation of Kenosha Sheriff's Department related to the Racine Police or Sheriff's Department. Asked our attorney, District Attorney Patricia Hansen, to investigate. She came back and said we couldn't find any wrongdoing. Well, my opinion is there was plenty of wrongdoing, but they're just not going to investigate police. They're not going to investigate the city administrator in Kenosha and the IT department. He now says, listen, I found emails that were never given to me, and this is what he's talking about here on the.
Right.
But this is very similar to the situation in Sandy. We're going to seal them here, and we're going to create a secret court.
Yeah.
In Kenosha, they just basically erased them. But we'll go on if you guys.
Yeah.
I was able to distribute to all the aldermen tonight an email that we found during open records requests. It's amazing how one email given under an open records request to Northeast Wisconsin Technical College shows that 9 emails were not given to me under an open records request to the city of Kenosha. I have to ask how many other emails were not given to me regarding the matter of my son. And that if one email about the weight of a bullet can generate 9 emails, how many emails were generated for 3 years while producing, scheduling, scripting 2 reenactment videos used in the defense of a police homicide? A 56-hour investigation had to be signed off by the mayor. We all know that government does not move that fast, and that 56 hours is absurd. It's almost forensically impossible. And I have to ask this question. We all know that the incident report came down from the Racine County Sheriff's Department, and it talked about 2 bad apples. And I have to ask you, were these 2 bad apples acting by themselves? Or did this go beyond City Manager Pizzetti and IT Director Kirkman? Why delete the police emails? Why would you even want to do that in the first place? Why did Pizzetti and Kirkman do what they did? Was it to bury a police homicide that has overwhelming forensic evidence of a cover-up? How much more evidence does the City Council need? As per Wisconsin Statutes, Chapter 62, the mayor is the direct supervisor of the Chief of Police, and he has a right to give a direct order and lawful order to the Chief of Police, and if the Chief of Police disobeys that order, the mayor can ask the Chief to step down through the Police and Fire Commission and ask for his dismissal. Mr. Mayor, you also have the voice as the leader of the city to publicly state that an investigation should be conducted into deleted emails into the Michael Bell shooting. Why don't you clear the city's name? You know if you're involved or not. Your silence implies your involvement. You had a moral responsibility to ensure a proper investigation in a police homicide, and it didn't occur. I asked this common council to think about clearing the city's name, and along with DA Gravely and DA Hansen, asking the Attorney General of the state of Wisconsin to appoint a special prosecutor in this matter. Thank you.
I guess the bottom line is we aren't the only city that's got a problem.
Right.
No.
And we've maintained this for a long time. In fact, when Sandy Weidner made her move back then in the days at the council meeting saying maybe Rodney Blackwell isn't all he's touted up to be, she was starting on a great big huge counter movement that hadn't been heard of in this country for a long time, and so it's not like we're the only ones that have these problems. Kenosha's got it. We know some other things we've brought up in past programs here of other cities that have run into this type of thing too. Close the government down, keep it closed so that people in government aren't exposed and made fools of.
But this is our community, and it's your community, and we don't intend to put up with that kind of crap. So that's why we're here. And we hope you...
well, I'd like to, we did have an email, did we not, from an alderman?
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
We should probably bring it up.
Well, yeah.
Do we want to go there?
Well, yeah, because this is from Jason Meekma, who's president of the city council. I had sent him a communication back in July 15th. I sent him a communication inviting him to come onto the show, and he got back to me on October 2nd. Hey Ken, it's been a while. Sorry it took so long to get back to you. I would be happy to find time to come on your show as long as we define the expectations ahead of time. Let me know what you had in mind. So Jason, I'll be getting in touch with you, and we'd like to have you on the show, and we'd like to discuss a lot of the things that are going on in the city, particularly what's going on with the city council. And as much as you're the president of the council, you should have some insights and some comments that the audience here that watches the show would appreciate hearing. So with that, be sure to get out and vote tomorrow, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Yep.
And we'll see you in a week. Thanks for being here.